So here's a quick recap. Big national companies made a fortune by advertising on the tube. C&R, or creativity and repetition, became the calling card of these big advertisers, and their methods trickled down into other media besides TV. Now here's the critical point. Advertising agencies and business schools started to benchmark these companies. They said, hey, look at these big rich companies getting bigger and richer. I wonder what they're doing. And they did a little bit of research, and here's what they discovered. Oh, they're advertising on TV with all this creative, slogan-oriented stuff, spending $1 bazillion on repetition, which led them to this conclusion. That must be how to get rich in business in this country. You spend more than your competitors on the tube, you hog up all the airwaves, you put your name and slogan out there so everybody sees it 50 quadrillion times, you do it all as creatively as possible, and as a result, you make a fortune. And you know what? For a period of time, they were right. We call this the era of the brand builders. In the 1950s and 1960s and even into the 70s to a certain extent, this was a no-brainer formula for market dominance for the companies with the financial wherewithal to pull it off. So the ad agency started running this formula for their other clients, even ones who were smaller and had shallower pockets. Business schools started teaching and implementing advertising based on methods that were being successfully implemented by the largest companies in the world and churning out graduates who only knew one way to do marketing. Brand builder marketing and advertising became the de facto standard for how you do it, and after a few years, nobody even questioned the formula. Which brings us to the crux of the problem. Everybody listening to this CD, with no exceptions, zero exceptions, let me be very specific, you grew up in an era where almost all the advertising you ever saw, and certainly all the advertising that you consciously remember, like Who Squeezed the Charmin, it was all a product of the era of the brand builders. We all became conditioned as to what constituted a good advertisement. We all learned the pattern for what to put into a commercial. We learned about slogans and jingles and being funny. And I'm not saying you had to sit in a classroom and get an MBA to learn this stuff. I'm saying we all learned it by osmosis, just by constantly being around it for years on end. We learned that in marketing and advertising, the outside perception doesn't have to reflect the inside reality. Let me repeat what I said at the very beginning of this program. Everything you know about marketing and advertising is wrong. And this is numero uno wrongo thingo. So now you're in charge of marketing and advertising for your company, and you need to create an advertisement, a brochure, a website. So you draw on all your collective resources. If you're going to put the marketing together yourself, you dredge up your mental archives for everything you've ever seen for 30, 45, 60 years as you've grown up. Maybe you've been to business school. You've got the MBA on the wall, and you're counting on what you learned there for solutions. Business school, it certainly wouldn't steer you wrong, would it? Maybe you pick up some books from Amazon.com on marketing and advertising. Or if you're going to leave your advertising and marketing up to so-called professionals, maybe you go to an ad agency for advice or hire some kind of marketing person or department. Well, here's the sad truth. All of the resources that you have access to, they all either flat out don't work, just don't know how to do it, or they teach you outmoded stuff based on antiquated brand builders, spend $1 billion on creativity and repetition, C&R model that doesn't work anymore, or at best is severely underleveraged. Maybe it still does work to an extent for Coca-Cola and General Motors because they literally spend over $1 billion a year on the repetition side of the equation. GM spends $3 to $4 billion a year on advertising. McDonald's spends over $1 billion. Coca-Cola spends over $1 billion. Procter & Gamble over $2.5 billion. If you throw enough mud at the wall, some of it's going to stick. But that's why I can say at the beginning of this CD program that everything you've ever learned, everything you've ever seen, everything you've ever done, all of it is wrong. The stuff just doesn't work anymore. And even if you do have $1 billion to spend, it still isn't the way to maximize your return. The inevitable resulting mess is known as the current state of marketing and advertising, where the outside perception built by the advertisements and the marketing pieces do not reflect and reveal the inside reality of the company. To this end, most ads can be classified into one of two major categories. Think about your stuff. It's either A, institutional advertising, or B, what we call menu board style advertising. Institutional ads are ones that essentially say, here's our name, here's our best attempt at being creative, and here's the biggest budget we could muster to support this crap. It's C&R at its finest. Almost all big companies and ad agencies, along with many small businesses and small agency copycats, specialize in institutional advertising. This is what most television and magazine advertising you see is comprised of. Take a look at your companion volume on page 6 for an example of institutional advertising. Then there's menu board style advertising, which basically says, here's our name and here's a list of what we have for sale, just like a menu at a restaurant. We have hamburgers, we have chicken, we have salads, we have roast beef. Maybe there's even a little picture of it. In advertising, we're a moving company. We load and unload. We move local and long distance. We move houses, apartments, and offices. We do commercial and residential moves. We have insurance. Oh, look, a picture of a truck. No duh. Get the point? Just like a menu at a restaurant, it's a simple listing of what's for sale. Many large companies and almost all small businesses specialize in menu board style advertising. If you let the newspaper or radio creative department put your ad together for you, you're almost certain to get a menu board style advertisement. It's vastly underpotentialized because it doesn't do what marketing and advertising is supposed to do. It doesn't get the prospect's attention. It doesn't facilitate their decision-making process. It doesn't build a case. It doesn't lower the risk. And it doesn't lead prospects to say, I would have to be an absolute fool to do business with anyone else but you, regardless of price. It just says, hey, we have stuff for sale. Come buy it from us for no justifiable rational reason other than we want your money, if you even happen to see this ad in the first place.